So I was hoping with last week's picks that I was going to do better and do much better than I had been through the first few weeks of the season. And what do you know? I did. I went 11-4 last week, feeling better about that. It's funny because on Sunday morning I woke up and I'm like, I really want to change the pick of that Detroit Chicago game because something strikes me that the Lions aren't going to freaking show up and the Bears will win this game that they shouldn't bother trying to win. But I stuck with the original pick, and there you go. And then for some reason, looking back, why did I pick the Giants to beat the Vikings on Monday night? I have no clue. But nonetheless, 11-4 last week, a much better performance. Hopefully, I can repeat that here in week number 5. I'm now sitting at 39-24 for the season, so winning record, giving myself a little bit of a cushion. But I'm not just satisfied with that. I want to do better, more 11-4 type of weeks, hopefully coming up in the future. So let's talk about week 5. Here are my picks. You can revisit them in the description box below. Make sure you let me know ahead of time if I've forgotten to mention any of the damn games, which I've had a bad habit of doing this year. You're welcome to give me your picks in the comment section as well. So Thursday night, I picked the Cardinals to beat the 49ers. The Cardinals had to have that game, and now the 49ers have to entertain the thought of starting Colin Kaepernick because it can't really get much worse, can it? They're not a terrible team, but they're not very good. They're a bad team. They're not terrible, but they're a bad team. And maybe Kaepernick gives him a little bit of shot of the arm. And maybe he doesn't. But I can't see how they can continue to trot out Blaine Gabbert as the starting quarterback and feel like they're making a viable effort to try and win NFL games and how they wouldn't lose the locker room if they continue to do so. But I've started off yet again this week 1-0, so I'm feeling good about that. I think that's 3 weeks in a row now that I got the Thursday game right. Yeah! So hope that's another harbinger of a good week to come. Let's talk about the picks. Starting off with the Sunday early afternoon games. Tom Brady's back. Not like it matters against the Cleveland Browns, but Tom Brady is back. Who else are you going to pick in this game other than the New England Patriots? You've got the Eagles at 3-0 coming off of a probably ill-timed bye week in week number 4, going to Detroit to face the Lions. It's hard to peg that Lions team because 1 week they'll sit there and they'll play really, really well. Then the next week they won't show up at all against a bad Bears team on the road. Now they've got Philadelphia coming in, even though Detroit's at home. Matthew Stafford throughout the years has had a horrible record against teams with a winning record. I'll stay with that trend, and I'll pick the Eagles to beat the Lions. I will take the Colts to beat the Bears. The Bears are banged up on offense. They're banged up everywhere, but they're still not a good team regardless. The Colts are kind of banged up, but they're also not a good team either. And at 1-3, this is really coming off of that loss in London to Jacksonville. This is a must-win game for the Colts. Now, we'll see what happens with them having to come back stateside and play, where traditionally teams playing in London get a bye the following week. The Colts don't. Maybe they could have used that bye week. But maybe the Chicago Bears coming into Lucas Oil Stadium, that's just the recipe for a turnaround to begin that the Colts need. I'll take the Colts here. I just think they have too much for the Bears, and they're in a situation where they're in a division where they can still feasibly win it if some things happen and they start to play better, but they have to win. They are in a must-win situation, a must-win game against the Bears. The Colts cannot go to 1-4. My upset of the week, I don't know how much of an upset it is. I'm just kind of throwing a dart up against the dartboard and hoping it sticks. I'll take the Titans to beat the Dolphins. I will take the Vikings to beat the Texans. And I hesitate on this one a little bit only because it fits a certain formula like I talked about 2 weeks ago. But I'll take the Steelers to beat the Jets. But again, this is the type of trap game or letdown game that the Steelers have fallen victim to over the years. The bad losses against the Jets and the Raiders and the teams that they have no business losing to. You know, it's those type of teams that the Steelers can really struggle with sometimes. And coming off of that big, massive performance on Sunday night against Kansas City, that dominant performance, this almost seems like the ripe opportunity for them to let one slip through their grasp. But I'm assuming that they'll be able to do enough and find a way to win this game, and they need to win this game. In terms of the afternoon games, I'll take the Ravens over the Redskins. The feature matchup is probably going to be the Falcons traveling to Denver to take on the Broncos. Whether Simeon starts or Lynch starts, it probably doesn't matter that much. We'll see what the Broncos do to try and slow down Julio Jones and Matt Ryan in that Falcons passing game, but I'd assume they'd be able to do just enough. if Devontae Freeman can get it going on the ground early against a Broncos defense that can be had on the ground, the Falcons can stay close and be competitive and have a chance. But at the end of the day, I still think the Broncos are a much better team. They're one of the few elite teams in the NFL, and I expect them to be able to handle business here in a surprising marquee matchup in Week 5. I'll take the Bengals on the road to beat the Cowboys. I will take the Raiders to go to 4-1, beating the San Diego Chargers at home. I will take the Rams to go to 4-1, beating the Buffalo Bills in the Coliseum. Sunday night, you've got the Giants going into Lambeau to take on the Packers. And it's funny because in recent years, the Giants have enjoyed some success against the Packers. They beat them the last 3 times they faced them, I believe it is. And you're coming into this where the Packers are coming off of a bye week, and you automatically assume that could be a good thing, but sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. Aaron Rodgers, it looked like was starting to get into a good rhythm in week number 3, and now you come into the bye week. How's that offense going to look with this early bye? And then you look at the Giants. They've been smarting. They started off 2-0. Then they've lost their last 2 games to the Redskins and to the Vikings. Now they come in here at 2-2. They probably feel that this is a pretty important game for them. My hope is, if nothing else from a purely fantasy standpoint, if nothing else, that this is going to be a big-time shootout. I know there's a lot of discussion and talk about Odell Beckham Jr. and whether he's a distraction, whether he can keep his head. I would expect him to come out and have somewhat of a vintage Odell Beckham type of performance here, and Jordy Nelson maybe to do so as well. But I will still take the Packers. I'd expect Eli Manning to miss a wide-open guy that's 5 yards from him like he's prone to do a few times a game and make that bad decision or that bad turnover when it was really going to cost his team. The Monday night game, the Buccaneers are banged up in the backfield. We don't know who's going to start for them at running back come Monday night. We know right now that Newton looks very questionable, if not doubtful, if very unlikely to play for the Carolina Panthers. This is one of these things where you've got 2 teams, I believe they're sitting at 1-3, 2 teams that probably view this as a must-win situation. But there's going to be more pressure on the Carolina Panthers because of the expectations for them heading into this season. They cannot afford to go to 1-4. They cannot lose another divisional game, this time at home, to the Buccaneers. Anderson is adequate. He is competent enough, I think, to be able to put the Panthers in enough positions to be successful. I think the Panthers will find a way to win this game, but even if they do, they might not look very good doing it. They need Cam to get through that concussion protocol and be healthy and ready to go for the rest of the season if this team has any real chance of turning it around. So there's my picks for this week. I'm going to get them all right. Right? Yeah, probably not. We'll see how I do in a few days.